When Michael fights Lucifer in heaven, what exactly is the devil thinking? What kind of tricks does Satan have up his sleeve that makes him think he can win against God? And what happens on earth? What are the impacts? We'll discuss all of this in today's episode. This cosmic struggle dates back to the distant past and has shaped all the events on earth and in heaven from that day till the present. In order to understand the Bible and world events, we need to understand this battle between God and the good angels like Michael and Satan and his evil angels. In our last episode, we learned about a revolt in heaven long ago that impacted the two families God had established. A divine council of heavenly beings known as the sons of God, or the Watchers, that ruled the heavens, and Adam and Eve, who were originally given the dominion of this world to rule it and subdue it under God's authority. But then Satan entered the picture and rejected God's sovereignty. His sin was one of pride. In Ezekiel we read, "Your heart became proud on account of your beauty, and you corrupted your wisdom because of your splendor." And Satan wasn't content to fall alone. He caused many of the angels to fall with him, and of course, he also tempted Adam and Eve to trust him and not God. The impact of this heavenly and earthly coup was that mankind's dominion of the earth was taken away from them and given to Satan. 1 John states that the whole world is under the control of the evil one. 1 John 5:19. In 3 places in his gospel, John refers to Satan as the prince of this world. John 12:31, 14:30, and 16:11. And in Luke 4, Satan directly states that the dominion of the earth was given to him. Since that time, God has been patiently working to revert the dominion and sonship back to mankind, and Satan has been struggling to keep that control. The last 6,000 years has revolved around this struggle. The struggle has been both spiritual and physical. Now, at the beginning of the video, we asked the question, is Satan crazy? I mean, his power is nothing compared to God's. So he must be approaching this struggle for the earthly dominion from a legal standpoint, not one of brute strength. He must be relying on a set of rules that he knows God will play by. What are those rules? Well, when Adam and Eve fell, they trusted Satan and his lies, not God. So it is my guess that if Satan can keep mankind trusting him and the divine council of wicked angels, he keeps the dominion. And Bible history seems to support this view. Cain, who the Bible tells us was the spiritual seed of Satan, killed his brother Abel, so he wasn't able to restore the dominion back to mankind. The world gradually became so evil that God sent a worldwide flood, but rescued Noah and his family in some kind of do-over. However, the world again continued to fall further and further away from God. In an attempt to make a name for themselves, rather than acknowledging God's name, humans began building the Tower of Babel. God then divided mankind into 70 nations because of their pride. It was at this point God turned the nations over to the members of the heavenly divine council, each one in charge of a nation. And he kept only the nation of Israel as his own inheritance. We saw this in the last episode, and it is found in Deuteronomy 32, verses 8 and 9. This is an important point to remember. And the divine council has ruled the Gentile nations from heaven ever since, taking the worship God is due for themselves. They have acted as the pagan gods. This is actually one of the means they use to keep dominion. In combination with Satan, they have continually attempted to keep the dominion from mankind by tempting them to forsake God or by killing them. In the book of Job, we see a great example of how Satan has managed this. In Job 1, we see the divine council meeting in heaven. There was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan came also among them. The Lord said to Satan, "Have you considered my servant Job? For there is no one like him on the earth, a blameless and upright man, fearing God and turning away from evil." Job 1, 6-8. In this way, by mentioning Job's righteousness, was God suggesting that Job was a possible dominion holder. Possibly because Satan immediately challenged this assertion and tested Job's faith in a multitude of ways. Because Job did not understand the cosmic nature of the struggle for dominion of the earth, he asserted personal pride in his own righteousness, a pride that God rebuked. But Satan's accusing and testing of Job is a model of what is happening in our world on a daily basis with those who trust God. It is happening to you. This type of accusing Satan is doing. And when Satan is finally cast out of heaven, he will no longer be able to accomplish this sort of spiritual attack. It will be strictly a physical one from then on. However, we're getting ahead of our story. Because no human was able to be righteous enough on their own, God sent his son Jesus, who finally defeated Satan and the divine council at the cross. Despite all the temptations of Satan, Jesus remained righteous. God now has the legal right to strip Satan of the dominion of the earth and give it to Jesus as the representative of mankind, who is a son of God. And Jesus' plan is to share that dominion with all true believers who will rule and reign with him. So Satan's only hope to hold on to his dominion is to destroy all true believers who refuse to acknowledge him, to kill or to steal and to destroy. John 10:10. In order to do that, he will place his man, the Antichrist, in the newly built temple of God, and everyone who doesn't worship him, he plans to hunt down and kill. Now Israel, where the temple will be, is the only nation on earth not under the control of the divine council, so Satan has no legal right to place the Antichrist there. So a court will sit in judgment. Thrones were set up, and the Ancient of Days took his seat. His vesture was like snow, and the hair on his head like pure wool. His throne was ablaze with flames. Its wheels were a burning fire. A river of fire was flowing and coming out from before him. Thousands upon thousands were attending him, and myriads upon myriads were standing before him. The court sat, and the books were opened. As we've shown in other videos, this is the same court scene found in Revelation 4-5. In the midst of Jesus opening the scroll with 7 seals, which will revert the dominion back to the saints of the Most High, Satan sits his man, the Antichrist, on the throne in Jerusalem. And this breaking of the law, where his dominion doesn't exist, likely leads to the war in heaven. But the court will sit for judgment, and his dominion will be taken away, annihilated, and destroyed forever. Then the sovereignty and the dominion and the greatness of all the kingdoms under the whole of heaven will be given to the people of the saints of the highest one. Daniel 9:26. God chooses Michael, the archangel, to fight Satan. And at the midpoint of the 70th week of Daniel, Michael stands up to oppose him. Now at that time, Michael, the great prince who stands guard over the sons of your people, will arise, and there will be a time of distress, such as never occurred since there was a nation until that time. Daniel 12, verse 1. Michael and Satan have known each other since they were created, and the battle during the tribulation will not be the first time they have opposed each other. But Michael the archangel, when he disputed with the devil and argued about the body of Moses, did not dare pronounce against him a railing judgment, but said, "The Lord rebuke you." Jude 1:9. Michael restrained himself at that time. But when God gives him the go-ahead, Michael, whose name means "who is like God," defeats the one who wants to be like God and hurls him and his demonic horde and the divine council to the earth. While the depiction of the great battle comes in the last book of the Bible, Jesus referred to this scene when he said to his apostles, "I saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven." Luke 10:18. And this verse is a source of great controversy. Was it in the distant past? Did Jesus see it then? Or is it in the future? The context helps. Jesus had just sent out 70 of his disciples, 2 by 2. The 70 returned with joy, saying, "Lord, even the demons are subject to us in your name." Luke 10:17. So Jesus saw his disciples now able to triumph over demonic powers when they hadn't been able to do so before. So something new had happened. We can therefore eliminate the ancient casting out. And Jesus had still not triumphed at the cross. Satan certainly wasn't cast out prior to the cross, so most likely Jesus was seeing a vision of the future casting out that would happen at the end times. Yet the impact of Jesus' attack on the satanic empire was already underway. From that moment on, Satan's empire began to crumble. And in Ephesians, written years after the cross, Paul tells us that the evil rulers, authorities, and powers are still in heavenly places. So without a doubt, the casting out of Satan is an end-time event. Now, why is this casting out important? Imagine playing a complicated game like chess. Now, imagine playing blindfolded. After being cast out, Satan will lose his perspective from on high. He won't be able to see things as well as he did. Imagine the power he has as the prosecuting attorney, able to test believers like he tested Job. Now, imagine him losing that position and being taken out of the courtroom. It appears likely that once confined to the earth, he will lose the ability to accuse the brethren. So what causes this war in heaven and the casting out? As we stated, it is our theory that it involves Satan breaking the heavenly law in regard to Israel, doing something he didn't get permission to do. Possibly it's the invasion of Israel, or maybe it's the seating of Antichrist in the temple and proclaiming himself as God. Whatever law it is he breaks, a divine courtroom scene takes place in heaven, and Michael casts Satan to the earth. We read, Satan, who deceives the whole world, was thrown down to the earth, and his angels were thrown down with him. And I heard a loud voice in heaven saying, "Now the salvation and the power and the kingdom of our God and the authority of his Christ have come. For the accuser of our brethren has been thrown down, he who accuses them before God day and night." Revelation 12:9 and 10. So you can see why this is the central event in all of Revelation. Although the believers on earth will face unprecedented physical persecution from that point on, their spiritual persecution from heavenly places will be over. Exactly what that means, I'm not completely sure. This would be a great point to discuss in the comments. But obviously, the voice in heaven who speaks thinks this is a monumental event in cosmic history. Revelation 12 is the central chapter in Revelation, and it is not linear, but rather a chiastic structure, as we've mentioned in multiple other videos. Two halves that mirror each other. As we explained before, the first half are events in heaven, the second half events on earth, with the casting down of Satan being the central event. He starts in heaven in verse 9, ends up on the earth in verse 10, at the very middle of the book of Revelation. In our next video, we will begin to look at events that take place on the earth once Satan and his evil angels are cast down. If you want to keep watching, click here to see who escapes the dragon. If it hasn't been published yet, another appropriate video will show up for a week or so until it is published. This is Nelson, and I'll see you there.